Kellyanne from Patchwork and Poodles, and today we are going to hand quilt clamshells onto our quilt top. If you've already watched my Baptist Vans hand quilting video, it's a really good one to start out with because we're going to use the same template that we created in that video for our clamshells today. So let's get started. Before we begin, to hand quilt your clamshells, we're going to be using the same template that is used in making Baptist fans. So if you haven't watched the hand quilting Baptist fans video, be sure to check that out to know how to make the template that we're going to use in the video today. If you're new to hand quilting, check out my hand quilting 101 video for all the tips and tricks because we're just going to dive right into this video into specifically how to hand quilt clamshells. When you're using your template to hand quilt your clamshells, it can be helpful at first to use a piece of paper and decide how big you want your clamshells to be. So I'm going to use this piece of paper here and draw them out. I think I want them 5th dot in from my 1/2 inch side, so I'm going to use that as my guide and just see what they end up looking like. You'll notice that I put a little piece of Post-it, or you can use a sticker, on the dot that I've decided I was going to try to use. The benefit of this is that you don't have to count every time that you're going to go do another arc. It's really quick to see, oh yeah, that's the dot I'm using. Yeah, I like the size of these, so we're going to go ahead and use that, and we're going to mark it on our quilt top. To mark on your quilt top, you can use a thin hair marker, you can use a chalk pencil, or you can use a couple mechanical pencils without the lead. So when the lead is retracted on mechanical pencil, it ends up looking kind of like a hair marker. It creates a crease into your quilt top, and you're able to see that crease and stitch on it. So if you don't have a hair marker, you can definitely use a couple mechanical pencils. I'm going to use a chalk pencil today. It's a little bit easier for you guys to see, and I like that once I draw my line, it's going to stay there until I wash it, which is really nice. Alright, so I've got my dot. I'm going to start on the end, lining it up with my bottom line here. I have a 1/2 inch border all the way around that I'm not going to stitch on, so I wanted to make sure to mark that first. I'm going to use my hair marker, you could also use a mechanical pencil, as my anchor point, and I'm going to use my chalk pencil to go ahead and mark my clamshell. It's a little bit tricky sometimes on the batting, so just make sure to get it up over the batting. There's my first arc. Line up my dot with the first arc that I made, my first clamshell, and go ahead and make your next semicircle or arc. The benefit of using this template instead of using a template that you make specifically for clamshells where you would draw a whole bunch of semicircles and cut them out of plastic is that you're able to make them out of any size or any shape that, or not any shape, any size that you want with one template. You don't have to create a whole bunch of templates. This one template is going to be perfect for us for all sorts of different projects. Alright, so a little bit here, so I'm just going to go ahead and mark that. With my first row done, now it's time to mark that second row. What I am going to do is I am going to line up this dot here. So when we created our templates, our first dots on either side lined up perfectly with each other. This is really helpful in this particular design because I'm going to use this bottom dot as a way to line up and make sure that I am in line in between my first two clamshells. You could decide to draw a grid on your quilt top instead and use that as your guide. This is just a way that you can do it without having to draw a grid. So my dot is right here. It's helping me to make sure that I know I'm in the middle. My dot with the sticker is lined up with the top of my clamshell arc right there. So this is going to be my anchor point. Again, we're going to line up, making sure this dot is between the two first clamshells. I'm going to scoot it up a little bit because I want this dot to see, I want to be able to see my mark underneath it, so I know that it's right on top of that first clamshell. Oh, I stuck it in the wrong hole. Right there. Up here is my anchor point. I'm going to draw that out. Another benefit of this template is that once I'm in that anchor point, I could decide that instead of just simple clamshells, I wanted to do clamshells with 2 arcs in them, or even clamshells with 3 arcs. So you really have the ability and the flexibility to be able to make them as elaborate or as simple as you want, since you already have your template all marked out. On those corners, it can be a little bit trickier. Sometimes it's helpful to flip your template around and to see that your dots match up. There's that one. And there's that one. Okay, so if I was doing this not on video for you guys, I would go ahead and I would mark my entire quilt top. This is a small throw pillow, so I would go ahead and mark the whole thing. If you're doing a larger quilt, you might want to go ahead and mark maybe a foot worth, so maybe, you know, 5 or 6 rows. So go ahead and stitch those and then mark some more. You can definitely go ahead and mark your entire quilt top if you wanted to. I find that it's a little bit tedious to make the marks, so I would rather mark some and then have the fun time of hand quilting and then go back and mark some more. Once you're ready to stitch, you're going to stitch your design from one end to the other, going by row. So I'm going to start out of personal preference on this right hand side, and I'm going to stitch my arcs all the way across, and then I'm going to come up and stitch them across the other way. If I have some arcs that I was doing, let's say I decided to do my entire quilt top with double arcs, then what I would want to do is, I'm just going to draw some organic ones to show you guys quickly. Okay, so if this was my entire quilt top, these double arcs, I would go ahead and I would stitch down one way and then come back the other way, and then I would move on to my next row. Okay, so I've reached the end here. I still have a bit of thread, so I'm going to go ahead and travel up to my next row. I'm going to continue stitching all the way across, marking all the way up, stitching some more, until I have this beautiful clamshell design all over my quilt. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe for more, and if there's something you'd like me to cover in the future, please leave it in the comments below. Thank you!